Cursed beasts of the abyss. Exposed secrets of sinister dimensions and terrifying cosmic hunts. Sarah hadn't meant to stumble into this hell. The shadows were creeping, dark and perverse, whispering her name like a sinister lullaby. As she trudged home from the supermarket, every crack in the pavement felt like a threat, every rustle in the bushes a warning. The neighborhood that once thrived with laughter and children's play now lay desolate, haunted by whispers of things that ought not to be. "Mommy, look!" Alex exclaimed, his voice echoing through the oppressive stillness when she walked in. He knelt on the floor, ranging his artwork furiously, scribbling frantic images on crumpled paper. At first, they seemed innocent enough: dragons breathing fire, wizards casting spells. But then she saw them. Horrid, visceral nightmares with too many eyes and gaping maws glared back at her with malevolent glee. Panic gripped at her heart. Her son was seeing things, dark things. "Alex, what is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're just the shadows," he replied softly, shrugging. "They come out at night." Panic bubbled in her chest. Shadows. Nothing good ever came of shadows. The kind Mr. Collins, their neighbor, had nodded gravely when she shared her worries, his smile unsettling as he suggested ritual salt circles, garlic at the door. Who believed in old wives' tales like that? But the way he looked at her, it was as if he knew something she didn't. And those whispers that punctured the silence every night, they clawed their way into her thoughts, revealing secrets that clung to her consciousness. The fabric of her reality felt unraveling, thread by thread, with each passing day. Late one night, it escalated and she found herself standing at the edge of desperation. "Alex!" she had screamed through the thinning veil of twilight. He was gone, vanished, his gait lost among shadows that danced menacingly at the tree line. The woods loomed like a ravenous beast, cold, dark fingers reaching out to envelop her. Every heartbeat echoed against her eardrums as she frantically ran toward the dark abyss. "Alex!" The air crackled as the shadows twisted, laughter echoing as if mocking her. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were alive, watching, waiting. "Please," she called, desperation flooding her voice. The old streetlights blinked ominously overhead, and the chilling breeze twisted her hair like a serpent. Stumbling backward, hyperventilating, she found herself pressing against a coppery, damp tree, her flashlight wavering over the shifting forms deep within the underbrush. Something was staring back. Before she could process, the whispers crescendoed, suffocating in their fervor, urging her forward, drawing her deeper into the unsuspected depth of the woods. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With her light flickering like a dying ember against the inky void, she stumbled into a clearing. There it lay, a grotesque tapestry of twisted roots and gnarled branches, pulsating with a wicked energy that sent her heart racing. Time itself seemed suspended around her as an unsettling image began to take shape, slowly unveiling truths she wasn't prepared for. Then, that laughter high-pitched and echoing unnaturally infested the air, a caustic reminder of her son's innocence. It collided with the encroaching terror as the darkness distorted and shifted, the shadow moving toward her with predatory fluidity. Fear gripped her, and an urgent realization struck. She might never return from this forsaken place. The captivity of dread tightened around her throat. In that fleeting moment, everything hung in balance, teetering on the edge of some unseen horror. There was no turning back now. The shadows writhed around her like serpents, slithering and twisting with a life of their own. The air grew thicker, tinged with a rancid smell that twisted her stomach. Sarah's heart raced, pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribcage, as she scanned the clearing for any sign of Alex. She was too far in now, too far from the safety of home, from any semblance of normalcy. "Alex," she called again, voice cracking, desperate. The laughter twisted, echoing back to her, taunting, reverberating through the trees. They were mocking her, she was certain of it. She took a step forward, the ground slippery beneath her shoes, and nearly stumbled into a mass of roots that clawed at her ankles. And then, she heard it, a faint whimpering, just within earshot. Her breath hitched as hope flickered in her chest like a fragile flame. "Alex," she cried, heart soaring. The sounds drifted through the trees, soft but frantic, her son's familiar voice slicing through the cacophony of dark laughter. "Mommy!" he cried, a sound both achingly sweet and horrifically pitiful. It was a signal, a tether pulling her toward him. Yet the shadows spurred at her heels, slinking back and forth like wolves encircling their prey. "Where are you?" she shouted, pushing through branches that snagged at her clothes, tearing at her skin. Deeper she stumbled into the night, the flashlight flickering erratically. Alex's cries grew louder, and with each frantic heartbeat, her sense of dread thickened. Suddenly, a heavy silence settled over the clearing. The laughter paused, suspended in the air, replaced only by a low, undulating growl that vibrated through her bones. She froze, her skin prickling with an instinctual chill. "Mommy!" Alex's voice surged from somewhere beyond the shadows, desperation coating each syllable. "I can't see you. Hold on. Honey, I'm coming." The words tore from her throat, filled with a strength she didn't feel. The darkness shifted, and in the periphery of her vision, something moved slower, but deliberate. She turned, and for an instant, her flashlight illuminated a grotesque figure weaving between the trees, its eyes gleaming a sickly yellow. It was monstrous, its body a mass of shadows layered upon layered with glimmering, sharp teeth that filled its wide maw. "Alex! Run!" she screamed, terror clawing up her throat. She lunged forward, guided by the sound of his panicked whimpering, bolting through the underbrush. Branches snapped as she forced her way through, fighting against the shadows that seemed determined to consume her. The scent of earth and decay enveloped her, a reminder of the things lurking just out of sight. Her breath came in desperate gasps, and with every step, the ground felt less stable. She stumbled and fell to her knees, the cold earth biting into her skin, dragging her back. A scream tore through her, the shadows laughing louder, swirling around her, and in that moment, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. She scrambled to her feet, her mind racing, barely breathing, chasing the sound of her son's voice. Suddenly, it stopped. The silence was deafening, every whisper extinguished as if the woods held its breath. "Alex!" she shouted, desperation pouring out like water spilled from a glass. Splashing futilely against the abyss, an eerie calm broke the tension, and something shifted in the air. A flicker at the very edge of the clearing, a movement that was too deliberate, too predatory to be anything but a promise of dread. As her flashlight dimmed and died, plunging her into darkness, a chilling realization struck. The woods weren't just alive, they were hungry. As fear sank its teeth into her, she felt the tremor of footsteps behind her, drawing closer. There was something waiting, lurking, and Sarah understood. She wasn't just looking for her son anymore. She was being hunted. But what if Alex was no longer merely lost? What if he had become part of the darkness? She stood frozen, heart pounding in her throat as the shadows settled around her like a thick fog. The air was heavy, stifling, filled with the rancid odor of decay. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but she couldn't leave Alex. Not now. She needed to push further into the dark, despite the gnawing sense of dread curling like a vine around her mind. "Mommy!" The whimper was closer now, but it felt like a lie, a trap laid by the darkness. It lured her in, promising safety while it tightened its grip. With a shaky breath, Sarah took a step forward, feeling the chill of the earth seeping into her bones. She clutched her flashlight, knuckles white, as she scanned the surrounding blackness. Branches clawed at her as she trudged through the underbrush, her heart racing with each step. The growling from before returned, Not just a sound but an echo, a voice that seemed to whisper her fears back to her, twisting them into gnarly forms. It taunted her, wrapping around her thoughts like a snake coiling tighter. "Alex, where are you?" she shouted, her voice cracking on the edges. She didn't recognize the desperation that bled through her tone. It felt primal, raw. There, a flicker of movement. Sarah turned, her light catching the silhouette of something moving between the trees. A flash of sharp teeth. It was there, watching, unblinking, hungry. Her heart raced as she stumbled backward, her mind screaming run. Then she heard it again. "Mommy!" The plea cut through the darkness, wrapping around her like a lifeline. Came from a thicket just ahead, something rustling. She choked back a scream, torn between the beast looming nearby and the broken voice of her son. Without thinking, she dove into the thickets, scraping her hands along the gnarled branches. It felt like she was crawling into a monstrous mouth, a trap designed to swallow her whole. But she had no choice. Alex needed her. Just as she broke through, a warmth washed over her, the sensation of familiarity, of safety. In that fleeting moment, she thought she saw him. A small figure hunched down, shivering yet still. "Alex!" Sarah gasped, relief washing over her. But then realization hit hard and cold as the figure turned, revealing eyes not of innocence, but of something dark, something other. It grinned as it stood, revealing jagged teeth far too long. It was not her son. Not anymore. No. She stumbled back, nauseous panic flaring in her chest. And in that moment she understood. The shadows had fed, had taken. They could wear Alex's shape but not his soul. "Mommy," the creature rasped, voice dripping with mockery and hunger. It took a step forward, the grin widening as the shadows deepened around it. Her flesh crawled, and every instinct screamed to run, to escape. But escape to where? The monstrous figure lunged, grotesque and swift, and she felt the breath of its presence sweep against her, hot and foul. Time warped. Everything slowed. Sarah turned and ran, bursting through the curtain of shadows. Branches whipped at her skin like lashings, but she didn't stop. Behind her, the laughter rose once more, a cacophony of twisted echoes, chasing her through the night. It was relentless, wrapping around her like a noose, tightening until she gasped for breath. Shadows danced in her periphery, darting forward like hungry hands. "Alex!" she screamed, her throat raw. "I'm coming. I wouldn't leave you." But the woods laughed back. They wouldn't let her. They had their own plans, their own twisted games. The air vibrated around her as she barreled deeper into the darkness, the adrenaline pushing her forward. Suddenly the ground dropped out from beneath her. Screaming, Sarah fell into an abyss, the sound of her voice swallowed whole by the darkness below. What darkness awaited her? What had Alex truly become? The world shifted violently as Sarah plummeted into the darkness. Falling, nothing to grab onto, no way to stop. It felt like an eternity, time elongating in the suffocating void. Then thud. Gasping, she landed hard on a damp, uneven surface. Instinct took over. She rolled onto her back, blinking into a darkness so complete it felt alive, almost sentient. Her flashlight flickered, sending erratic beams of light cutting through, revealing silhouettes of craggy walls encased in shadows. The air carried a metallic tang, sharp and unnerving, like the aftermath of a grisly battle. A noise echoed from somewhere deep within the abyss, a slow, dragging sound that made her heart race. Was it Alex? No, don't think that. Alex, she forced out, voice trembling. Panic wrapped its claws around her throat. What if she never found him? What if he was lost forever? The dragging sound stopped, replaced by a series of shrill whispers. They spiraled around her, infiltrating her mind. "Mommy," they taunted, slipping in and out like venomous snakes. Confused, she squeezed her eyes shut, wanting to block out the shadows, the mockery. But then silence. With trembling hands, she swept her flashlight across the expansive chamber. The beam caught something, a glimpse of movement, just beyond the reach of the light. She squinted, heart clenching. Worn-out furniture lay strewn about, the remnants of an almost human semblance. Broken tables, tattered chairs, all encased in thick layers of dust. This place felt ancient, sinister, as if the walls themselves held secrets too unbearable to share. Then she saw it, something wriggling in the corner, coated in shadow. Breathing shallowly, she approached, her mind racing with possibilities. Her heart soared when she thought it might be Alex, but dread followed closely behind. It was a grotesque creature, an emaciated figure, crawling with trembling limbs where uneven skin stretched taut over protruding bones. A face twisted with malice stared back, too familiar and yet horrifyingly wrong. "Help me," it rasped, the voice chillingly resembling her son's. "Stay away," she screamed, backing up. The creature's tongue flicked out like a serpent's, and despair washed over her. This wasn't just darkness. It was a breeding ground for nightmares, a feast for the lost souls the shadows consumed. Behind her, a thundering crash broke the silence, shaking the very ground beneath her. A deep rumble resonated from the depths of the abyss, as if something colossal stirred awake. In a panic, she turned and fled, stumbling further into the darkness. Dim shadows flickered along the walls, eager to consume her. Breaths came in frantic bursts, her lungs struggling against the damp, cold air. "Alex," she called, desperation echoing into the nothingness. The sound swallowed before it could bounce back. She pushed through twisted wreckage and thick strands of darkness, trying to escape the shrieking laughter that echoed from behind. "It's okay. I'm coming." She clutched the flashlight like a lifeline, the beam flickering in response to her racing heart. But ahead, darkness surged. It pulsed with malevolence, darker than anything she had encountered, beckoning her forward like a cruel gambler trying to catch her in its trap. Promised answers but concealed horrors. The laughter grew louder, morphing into a savage chorus of ghastly wails, as if the very flesh of the void screeched in delight. She stumbled into a cavernous chamber. Black walls glistened with grotesque images, faces twisted in pain, screaming out of the obsidian stone. The shadows gathered, their edges sharpening with intent. Then she saw it, a slivering form, just under the surface of the wall. Pulsed. It breathed. Was it Alex? Before she could register the thought, a blast of icy wind swept through, snuffing out her flashlight entirely. She stood in absolute darkness, swallowed by the void. The whispers returned now, louder, more sinister. "Join us," she felt herself being pulled, the shadows wrapping around her ankles like hands, dragging her down into the depths. As dread clawed through her, she fought back, desperate to escape. The swirling dark gripped harder, and in that final moment of despair, she wrenched her eyes open wider, clinging to the last shreds of sanity. The last whisper crept into her ear, chilling her to the bone. "Alex is ours now." Was it true? Was she truly too late? The abyss closed in, ready to claim her as she screamed one final time into the void, resonating with her horror. What awaited her in this dark tapestry? What truths would the shadows reveal? Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as the whispers clawed at her thoughts, but she wouldn't surrender. She fought through the encroaching shadows, pushing back with all her strength. Desperation fueled her, igniting a fire deep within. "No!" she shouted into the darkness. "I won't let you take me." Suddenly the pull receded. The sinister shadows writhed but didn't claim her. Breathing heavily, Sarah stood firm, confronting the dark. The whispers turned into a cacophony, each snarl and shriek echoing endlessly, layering her surroundings with overwhelming dread. "Alex!" she screamed again, her voice cutting through the din, more a plea than a battle cry. The darkness seemed to quiver, momentarily distracted by her anguish. Then, a flicker of light sparked on the edge of her vision. She turned toward it, the faint illumination contrasting sharply against the oppressive black. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat, drawing her in. Treading carefully, she approached the source of the glow. Each step felt electric, the air crackling with unseen energy. The ground beneath her felt alive, breathing with a rhythm that matched her mounting terror. As she neared, she made out shapes, more writhing figures, but these were different. They weren't twisted and malicious. They were distorted images of people, their faces stretched in agony. Surrounded by their frozen screams, Sarah's heart sank. Were they lost souls caught in this nightmare? She reached out instinctively, hoping to help, to save, but her hand passed through them like smoke. The light flickered again, brighter now, and she squinted to see what lay beyond. Long, ragged shadows danced at its edges, growing and shrinking, teasing her as if they knew secrets she did not. A memory jolted through her. A story Alex had told her about a buried treasure, hidden where no one dared to go. But what good was treasure when it was wreathed in despair? "Mommy," help a voice, soft and distant, zeroed in on her, and her heart lurched almost painfully. It was Alex, but was it really him? "Hang on. I'm coming." Her voice trembled, but she surged forward. The light pulsed wildly now, as if urging her on, the shadows writhing like angry serpents all around her. The closer she got, the louder the laughter became, indiscriminate and mocking. The walls shivered as if the entire cavern was alive, twisting with malice. Had the very darkness turned against her? Was it possible Alex was not just lost but claimed by that cruel void? She reached the light, discovering it emanated from a fissure in the cavern wall, jagged and glowing with an eerie, phosphorescent hue. It beckoned her with a halo of hope amidst despair. What lay beyond? Possibly salvation or eternal damnation. Breathless, Sarah had to choose. The whispers returned, more frantic now. The faces in the darkness began to turn towards her, their eyes hollow, burning with urgency. They weren't lost, they were warning her. As she edged closer to the fissure, a familiar form emerged from the shadows, inches from the light. It was Alex, his features soft and round, but his eyes were wild, glowing, the innocence gone. "Mommy!" he shouted, but it was strangled, raw. Panic gripped her anew. She had to decide. Take a chance and dive into the light for him, or remain in the dark and fight the shadows. "Alex!" she screamed, arm outstretched, heart racing as darkness began to close in again. Would she lose him forever? Would the shadows claim them both? Tension brewed, thick and suffocating, as she made her choice, the light flickering ominously. But just then, a figure lunged from the depths, a creature larger than anything Sarah had ever seen. It loomed, ready to pounce. Would they finally escape, or was this the end? The shadows swirled in anticipation, and with Alex's sinister smile pressing into her mind, she felt the darkness licking at their heels. "Dive into the light," she urged Alex, but the shadows tightened their grip. What awaited them now? What demonic secrets would the abyss reveal? The creature's form elongated, dripping with a shadowy essence that glimmered like oil. Sarah screamed again, a primal sound that broke through the relentless laughter echoing around them. "Alex, move!" she yelled, her voice desperate as she stumbled backward. The fissure's light flickered wildly, illuminating Alex's wide, terrified eyes. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The cavern held its breath, shadows momentarily scattered. The creature's breath was a foul wind that pushed against Sarah's skin, tasting of decay as it loomed closer, teeth glinting in wicked delight. Above all the chaos, the whispers simmered, threading through her mind like barbed wire. Surrender, they beckoned, enticing her into despair. "Mommy!" Alex cried again, but this time the plea felt layered with fear deeper than mere innocence. It resonated with the warning of something chillingly wrong. Her son was not in danger alone. The darkness within him was awakening, tainting his soul. "No!" she shouted back, a voice forged from fury and love. She rushed forward, grasping Alex's arm as she pulled him toward the fissure. The shadows around them writhed, shrieking their discontent. But Sarah was fueled by an unrelenting resolve. But the darkness wasn't done. Tendrils lashed out, wrapping around her leg, pulling her back. An agonized scream surged from her throat as she tightened her hold on Alex, dragging him closer to the light, desperation smashing against the dread pooling in her gut. The pulsating fissure felt like a heartbeat, a living thing that could see them, understand them. "Stay with me. Trust me," Sarah gasped, as more shadows leaped forth, slashing at her wrists. Each strike burned, leaving her skin raw and tinged with blackness. In an act of sheer instinct, Sarah flung herself into the light, pulling her son with her. The fissure exploded in brightness, surprisingly warm, like sunlight after a storm. But the shadows screamed, their howls of rage echoing off the cavern walls. Just as they thought they had escaped, darkness wrapped around them like a shroud, pulling them back from the brink. "There's something wrong here," Alex shouted, struggling against her grip. His eyes flashed with terror and something darker. He was changing. "Let go of me," he screamed, his voice warping, twisted as if an unseen force was reshaping him. "Alex!" Sarah's heart plummeted as she felt his grip begin to slip. She couldn't let him go. She wouldn't. A sudden energy erupted in the fissure, sending waves of force rippling outwards. The shadows recoiled, flickering against the light. Momentarily freed from their grasp, Sarah yanked Alex closer, searching his face for the child she knew, the child she loved. But there, in the depths of his eyes, something sinister simmered. "You can't take it away from me, Mommy," he whispered, voice low and guttural, layered with darkness. "It wants me to help bring it back." A crushing realization weighed down her chest. The abyss didn't just threaten them. It was recruiting him. It already had him in its grip. The fissure pulsed with ominous energy, tearing through the cavernous fabric. Sarah rushed forward, a growing awareness of something lurking just beneath the light, a sinister force eager to rise. And as Alex's form began to blur and shift, a deep rift formed, a choice pivotal and dangerous. "You have to fight it, Alex," Sarah pleaded, desperation coating her every word. "We need to fight together." But the light flickered, dimming slightly under the strain of the shadow's wrath. The dark beast lingered, waiting to seize this moment of vulnerability to swallow them whole. Now, more than ever, Sarah realized the game had changed. It wasn't just about saving a child. It was about reclaiming their very souls from the brink of utter darkness. Would the fissure's light hold against the gathering storm? As she considered her next move, an unsettling sensation coiled around her heart, like the darkness was clawing from within, promising to peel her apart. They were not alone anymore. What echoed now were not simply whispers but entwined cries of souls, bound to this realm, a choir of damnation. But Sarah steeled herself, peering into Alex's eyes one final time. "We will find a way," she declared, even as the shadows closed in. A moment of resolve, then chaos erupted anew as the beast lunged forth, teeth gnashing. What brings light to darkness? What other confinements lay in wait? As the shadows surged forward, swallowing their surroundings, one truth loomed heavily: this battle had only just begun. The shadows writhed, consuming the warmth of the fissure's light until it shimmered like a dying ember. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a drum of despair pounding in her ears. "We have to go," she screamed, but Alex's gaze had locked onto the darkness, a trance dripping with dread. "Mommy," his voice quivered, a fragile string pulled taut, ready to snap. "Says I belong here." The shadowed tendrils curled eagerly, like sinister snakes at the beckoning of their master. "Alex, no." She yanked at his arm, panic igniting her every thought. The frigid air wrapped around them like ice, numbing her skin, her resolve crumbling as she felt the oppressive weight of the darkness pressing against her. The creature was hungry for fear, for despair, and it was prowling. It surged forward, its mass shifting like a tidal wave of black fury. Sarah's breath hitched as she struggled, fiercely locking eyes with her son, his innocence now teetering on the edge of obliteration. Together they had to fight, but the shadows pulsed, weaving a tapestry of nightmares, a cloak of collective woes begging her to give in. Whispers grew louder, rushing through her head like a furious wind. Its futile give-up struggling. She shut her eyes tightly, blocking out their treacherous calls. "I'll never let you go," she shouted, feeling adrenaline pump through her veins, fueling her strength. With a fierce grip, she pulled Alex toward the fading light, willing warmth back into his eyes. Suddenly, A sharp pain shot through her wrist as a shadow snagged her sharply, dragging her back. Dread pooled in her stomach as she felt herself slipping. The light was waning, and Alex, her precious boy, was slipping away, now too transfixed, and snared in the darkness that beckoned. "No!" she screamed, pulling harder. "Fight it, please!" In that moment of desperation, the fissure flared, a defiant beacon in the consuming abyss. It cathartically surged, throwing back the shadows momentarily. Within its light, there was a face, a figure, fleeting yet familiar. Was it a dream, a memory, or something far more sinister? Instinctively, she staggered into the vibrant warmth, feeling a surge of energy coursing through her veins. "Look, Alex, that's hope, that's us." But while Sarah saw a flicker of light, Alex's features twisted in confusion. "It's wrong, Mommy, it wants." His words were cut off as the creature roared, a sound like the crushing weight of 1,000 souls. Narrowing her eyes at the swirling mass, Sarah gritted her teeth. "We don't belong to you," she shouted defiantly, knowing they had little choice left. With a surge of fury and love interwoven, she lunged forward, pulling Alex into a tighter embrace. "We're leaving." Just then, the cavern trembled, and a splintered cracking echoed through the darkness as the fissurous light grew more intense. Shadows recoiled, but the creature summoned them back, its form expanding in grotesque jubilation. "You cannot escape the depths," it bellowed, a voice that resonated deep within the stone walls. "Stand strong," she screamed, her voice battling the oral onslaught. The flicker from the fissure trembled under the swift return of the shadows, yet it raged fiercely. The air felt electric, thrumming with the ache of 1,000 warnings that almost screamed, "This isn't the end." But as the light twisted and rolled, she was still engulfed in its warmth, a temporary reprieve granted to her and Alex. Yet she felt the darkness curling around their feet, yanking them back towards the gaping maw. And deep inside, an awful thought crept in. What if this was all a trap? Would she have the strength to unravel Alex from its claws? As the cavern trembled again, the fissure whispered, "Come. Embrace the truth that lies beyond." Clenching her fists, Sarah squared her shoulders, preparing for the final push. What price must she pay to free her son? And what hidden truths would they reveal? With chaos crackling around them, Sarah tightened her grip on Alex, refusing to let the shadows take him away. Behind them, the creature's jagged smile grew wider, its hunger overwhelming. The ground shook violently beneath their feet, shaking her resolve. What lay beyond this struggle? The answer seemed to hang just out of reach, mocking her. Together, she whispered, knowing deep down that every moment counted, even as the darkness whispered menacing promises. Their fight had just begun, and now it was a race against time. Would the fissure illuminate their escape or ensnare them forever? The ground shuddered violently, splintering apart as Sarah and Alex were pulled closer to the yawning abyss. A chill swept through her body, making her numb against the frantic beat of her heart. The cracking sound echoed around them, sharp and piercing, as if the very world were shattering into pieces. "Mommy, I don't want to," Alex whimpered, tugging weakly against her pull, his little body trembling with fear. His innocence flickered like a candle in a storm. "No, we're getting out," Sarah shouted, determination clawing its way through her panic. She felt the shadows grasping at her like freezing fingers, but she focused all her energy on her son. He was her only anchor amidst this chaos. The darkness lunged again, surging forward like a monstrous tide intent on dragging them both back. It hissed with frustration, the whispers turning into a cacophony of voices clamoring inside her head, each one more seductive than the last. "Join us, surrender." Sarah clamped her eyes shut, tuning them out. She strived to remember the warmth of the sunlight, the smell of fresh grass, anything that reminded her of life outside this nightmare. "Fight it," she yelled to Alex, willing him to hear her through the fog of fear. "Think of our home, the backyard, the bike rides." He blinked at her, confusion mingling with understanding. For a fleeting second, she saw the light of recognition break through his haze of terror. "Mommy," he breathed, and in that small voice, She caught a glimmer of the boy she knew before the shadows came with renewed strength. She yanked him closer, the crack in the stone widening next to them. They could barely see the fissure now, light beginning to dim under the encroaching horror. "Hold my hand," she urged fiercely, and he grasped it, the warmth of their connection igniting hope once more. Just then, the creature roared, its voice a terrible echo that seemed to shake the very walls of the cavern. "You will be mine. You are bound to me." The shadows lunged, attacking like wild beasts unleashed, and Sarah shielded Alex with her own body, instinct kicking in. But the beast's growl reverberated around them, deep and menacing, wrapping them in a suffocating mire of dread. "Stay close," she commanded, feeling the pull of darkness attempt to enslave them. With every ounce of strength she had left, Sarah spread her arms wide, embracing the thin sliver of light peeking through the cracks in the stone. The fissure responded, its glow intensifying. Was this really hope, or just another cruel illusion? As the light flashed, it painted grotesque images along the cavern walls, visions of despair and eternal entrapment. A pit formed in Sarah's stomach, the odds were stacking against them. "You're just whispers. Nothing more," she screamed defiantly. The shadows hesitated, recoiling. It was a momentary pause, a flicker of uncertainty in the creature's hunt. Sarah seized her chance. "This way." She steadied her grip around Alex and darted towards the fissure, her feet pounding the stone. But the darkness surged back, more furious than before, the shadows chasing them like a pack of wolves, ravenous and relentless. Just as they reached the ridge of light, an arm of black sinew shot out and wrapped around Alex's ankle, yanking him back with a terrible force. "Mommy!" he shrieked, horror-stricken. Time slowed, slipping through her fingers like the shadows clawing at the edges of her sanity. She turned, fear morphing her features into a snarl, her heart a roaring inferno. "No!" she shrieked, lunging towards him. But the creature pulsed and writhed, illuminating a monstrous grin. "Join him! Join us!" it hissed, its voice slithering across the cavern walls, urging her to surrender. Desperation twisted in her chest. "Fight it, Alex! Fight!" But as she reached for her son, a sudden realization flooded her. Who was that figure in the light? Could it guide them, or did it beckon deeper into mystery? With breathless determination, she anchored her resolve. Together, she screamed into the roaring blackness, knowing full well that the true depths of their horrors were still waiting to be unearthed. As the shadows surged again, Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath them once more, and a horrific thought flickered. What if it wasn't just Alex who was at stake? The darkness writhed like a living thing, stretching and recoiling as if the very layers of reality were tearing apart at the seams. Sarah's heart raced, each pulse a shout against the suffocating blackness enveloping her and Alex. She felt the freezing grip of dread steal the air from her lungs. "Mommy!" Alex's voice, full of raw fear, cut through her thoughts like a jagged knife. She could almost taste the despair hanging thick in the air, mingling with the scent of earth and decay. In that moment, Sarah swung around, her eyes searching for the elusive sliver of light, the figure cloaked in its radiance. It was faint, flickering, as if it too was battling against the shadows, but it seemed to pulse with a kind of promise, a lifeline thrown in a storm. Maybe, just maybe, it could save them. "Hold on to me, sweetheart," she cried, tightening her grip around her son's hand. But the darkness had other plans. It thrashed against them, throwing chaos into their sanctuary of light. She felt Alex's body jerk, desperately trying to break free from the suffocating shadows binding him. "Let him go!" Sarah screamed, her voice full of fury. The creature's laughter echoed, low and mocking, dancing cruelly around her. "Why fight when you can join us?" Taunted, its words dripping with malice. "Eternal freedom awaits in the abyss. Embrace it, never!" Sarah roared back, her spirit coiling around her son's fragile frame. Fear turned into a raging fire inside her. This was not a battle for her life, but for Alex's soul. And with that realization, something awakened within her. She dug her heels into the trembling ground and pulled Alex close. Together, Alex. We can't give in. The shadows recoiled again, hissing like a wounded beast. For a moment, a glimmer of doubt flickered in their depths. Sarah surged forward, pulling Alex with her as they charged toward the shimmering figure. The ancient stone felt alive beneath their feet, radiating warmth against the cold grasp of despair. The closer they got to the light, the clearer the figure became. It transformed into a silhouette of a woman, her face hidden but exuding an aura of strength and calmness. "Trust me," she beckoned, her hands outstretched. "Who are you?" Sarah shouted, desperation lacing her voice. "Can you help us?" The figure nodded, still encased in brilliance. "Follow me. This way leads to safety, away from the hunger of the abyss." At that moment, the darkness roared, more powerful than ever, unleashing a flood of black tendrils swirling around them with vengeful force. They struck like striking vipers, tearing toward them with increased speed, intent on dragging them back into oblivion. "Run!" the figure cried, urging them forward as the shadows writhed, clawing at the precious light surrounding her. They sprinted, fear motoring every step, the relentless darkness snapping at their heels. Sarah could hear it, the low growls morphing into shrieks of anger. There was no room for doubt now. As the fissure widened, she caught glimpses of scenes swirling in the chaos. Images of other lives caught fading faces, desperate hands reaching out for help, and alien landscapes that sent chills racing down her spine. What is this?" "Visions of lost souls," the figure replied, her voice unwavering. "Fate of those who surrendered." A surge of cold adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins. The realization hit her like a physical blow. "We can't end up like them." "Yes," the figure called back, urgency in her tone. "You have the strength to resist. Focus on the light." With a last burst of energy, they barreled into the light, feeling the shadows claw at their clothes, pulling them backward as if the void were alive. But just as they thought they had escaped, a lightning-like jolt of darkness caught Sarah's eye, a glimpse of the creature's true form, its shape shifting and grotesque, longer than nightmares could conjure. "No!" she gasped, panic spreading in her chest. Then she heard it, the echo of her own voice. "Mommy!" The shadows grew louder, their whispers melding with Alex's cries. An endless loop spiraling back into the maw of horror. In that haunting moment, she realized this was not just a battle to emerge from the darkness. It was a fight against a destiny far more twisted and sinister than she ever imagined. What more awaited them in the light beyond? The figure faltered for just a beat, and in that space, Sarah saw a flicker of fear cross her face. What if the only way out was deeper into the unknown? "Mommy!" Alex shrieked again, drawing her back to reality where the true horrors of the abyss still loomed. And deep in the endless void, the whispers grew louder, teasing the edges of her resolve with promises of power and truth. What was the price of survival? The darkness shrieked as they tore through the shimmering fissure, but the warmth of light wrapped around Sarah and Alex like a protective blanket. They stumbled into a vast expanse, illuminated by a golden dawn, a stark contrast to the shadows they had escaped. It felt wrong, too bright, too perfect, a harsh reminder that nothing was ever truly as it seemed. The echoes of the abyss faded into whispers, but the fear pulsed in her veins like poison. Mommy Alex's voice sounded distant, fragile. She glanced at him, her heart clenching tight. His face was pale, the joy stripped away, eyes still glimmering with a hint of something not quite right. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Listen to me, sweetheart," she said, kneeling so they were eye to eye. "We need to stay strong. This isn't over." She could feel the weight of their harrowing journey in every word. But she raised a finger to her lips, silencing him. "Do you remember what we talked about?" She grasped his hand tightly. "The backyard, our bike rides, the stars we used to look at?" There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "We can get back to that, with every step. But you have to fight. You have to remember who you are." A tremor ran through Alex. "Mommy," I feel. He paused, confusion twisting his expression. "I feel it wanting me again." "The darkness, no," she shouted, her voice lifting above the soft murmurs of the light. "You are strong. Listen to me. She pressed her forehead against his, feeling the warmth, the love a tether that would not break, no matter how dark the void had been. Forget the whispers. Just remember us. With a nod, Alex blinked back tears, and for a moment, Sarah saw her child again, untainted by shadows. But they were not safe yet. The air shifted, carrying an oppressive weight that made the ground tremble beneath them. The figure of the woman appeared ahead, her luminescent aura flickering, fading in and out as if struggling to maintain its constitution. You must move, she urged. They will come for you. They resent your escape. Before Sarah could ask which way to go, the shadows swept closer, darker and more ravenous than before. Rage twisted in her stomach, the creature was persistent. Run! She screamed, grabbing Alex's hand. They dashed forward, but just at the edge of her periphery, she caught a glimpse of the monstrous form materializing from the shadows, grotesque and gleeful. The beastess laughter burrowed into her mind, a reminder of how close it was, how easily it could reclaim them. Mommy! Alex's voice strained with fear. I'm here. Baby. Just a little more. They sprinted forward through the shimmering landscape, but as they crossed through a shimmering divide, the echoes of the abyss reverberated through the ground like a warning bell. The bright void around them began to warp, twisting and contorting, shadows stretching to reclaim what they believed was theirs. Move, hurry, Sarah urged, desperation sinking in her bones. With each pounding step, the laughter crescendoed, twisting around them like a taut noose. Then suddenly, they were back where it all began, the edge of the tree line in their neighborhood. The familiar path that led home, yet it felt tainted, distorted as if they were humanity's ghost embodying their reality, trapped forever in a twilight limbo. Is this home? Alex's voice trembled. No, Sarah said, choking back a sob. But we are going to make it home. Together. She moved toward the trees, stepping cautiously as the urge to look back clawed at her consciousness. But when she did, shadows poured from the darkness like a tidal wave, a chaos of hungry whispers echoed, and the malignant figure lurked, inching closer. With a small flick of her wrist, Sarah hurled a handful of salt, something Mr. Collins had insisted upon. It burst against the encroaching darkness, illuminating the air with a blinding flash. A roar shook the ground. Trust the light, she shouted, pulling Alex closer. Keep going. They burst past the threshold of trees, breaking away from the raucous laughter. As the shadows fluttered like moths, Sarah found clarity in her goal. She could see their house, the familiar peeling paint, the front porch. There. We must get inside. With renewed vigor, they raced to the door, flinging it open. The air inside was different still, grounded, each breath a life-giving embrace. She spun to face the door, holding it shut against the whispers, against the darkness threatening to seep in. Mommy! Alex cried, doubt creeping back into his voice. It's okay, we just need to shut them out. She focused on the pillars of their lives. Memories of laughter at the dinner table, his tiny hands grasping his first bite, afternoons spent painting rainbows. They can't have you, Alex. You belong to the light. At that moment, the whispers twisted into anguished wails, claws scratching desperately at the walls. Shadows thrummed, vibrating with rage. Yet Sarah stood firm, drawing courage from everything they had been through, everything they still had to fight for. Suddenly, bursts of warmth surged through the air, light flooded into the cracks around the door, overwhelming and violent. Hold on, Alex, she yelled, seconds stretched into eternity. If they could just remain grounded in their love, then maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to close the door on darkness. Then it happened. The shadows slammed against the door, a final roar echoing across the room, combining in a cacophony too immense to ignore. But the sanctuary of their home shimmered with an ethereal glow, a force field of love and light pushing the evil backwards, further and further. Stepping closer to each other, they pooled their strength, hands clasped tightly, hearts beating with synchronized determination. No, Sarah shouted back, her voice ringing out proud, echoing through the chaos. We are not lost. We are here. In that potent moment, a brilliant light burst from their connection, shattering the oppressive darkness. and with a final, guttural shriek, the shadows recoiled as if burned. With a blinding flash, they were catapulted back into the sunlight. The shadows vanished, leaving behind only the rustling of leaves and the soft call of birds announcing the dawn of a new day. Sarah stood, breathing heavily, disoriented, but alive, truly alive. She looked down at Alex, his small face shining with the innocence she had fought so hard to protect. "Mommy, we did it," he whispered, a tentative smile breaking through the residual fear. "Yes, we did. And no matter what happens, we always will." They stepped out of the house and into the warmth of daylight, holding on to the promise of safety, family, and hope. The shadows may linger and threaten again, but this time, they would be ready. Armored in love, they would never cease to fight for each other, for life, for a future that was theirs to claim as they walked hand in hand. Sarah glanced back towards the woods, its depths darkened and foreboding, but she felt no fear. With Alex at her side, she held on to hope, and that was enough. Now, while you're here, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support, because believe me, it makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this incredible tale. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the word together.